I started learning English myself when I was 14 years old. I did learn English in school. I started learning English in second grade, but I just felt like it's not that interesting, and I was just really lazy. I thought English is just like a normal subject. Like, what's the point of learning English? I didn't see the value of English in school, and so I only started learning English when I was 14 years old. I just watched a random video on YouTube, and the guy was talking about how cool it is to learn English. Like, imagine setting all of your devices to English and doing everything in English, like a true American. And I was like, bro, you really can't do that? Maybe I should try. I was really inspired to do that, and I decided to basically set all of my devices, everything in English, and just start doing everything in English from now on. And honestly, it was not that easy. Like, it took me a lot of time to actually get used to doing everything in English, to setting all of my devices to English, and just simply becoming comfortable and familiar with it. But slowly my motivation to learn English went down. I thought, all right, it's great to learn English, but what's the actual point of it? Like, I don't see any reason to learn English. So then I wanted to become a programmer. And I was like watching videos about programming, and I thought like, well, I need to get a job in the future, right? So maybe I should become a programmer. But everyone told me that the thing is, bro, you don't need to learn math. You don't need to learn any of those subjects if you want to become a good programmer. What you need is English. You need to have good English to become a programmer, because you'll spend a lot of time troubleshooting stuff. Most of the information is available in English, so you have to learn English. And I was like, I guess so. I guess I need to learn English. And so I continued doing that, and I had more motivation to learn English as a result. But soon enough, I realized that, I guess programming is not for me. I just don't like it, because I have to troubleshoot things. I have to fix the errors all the time. And I was just really angry about this. I was slamming my keyboard all the time because it just didn't work, right? So I thought like, I want to create video games. That's why I'm learning how to become a programmer, right? What if instead of coding the games, I actually do the characters? I actually draw the characters. I do the 3D models of characters. And so I decided to learn a program called Blender 3D. So in this program, I basically started making characters and 3D models. And so I had a little bit of knowledge in English. I understood English on a good level. And so I just started watching videos about how to make 3D models in English. So I learned how to make 3D models, and I felt really confident in my English at the same time, because I could watch anything in English now. Like, how cool is that? But the problem was that I just couldn't speak English. Like, I understood English on a good level, but I just couldn't speak it. I couldn't say a word in English. It was really frustrating, because after a couple of years of learning how to make 3D models, I decided to make money from this. One time I decided to sell my first 3D model. So I put a 3D model of a burger on the marketplace, and I started waiting for someone to buy it. And a couple of months passed, no one bought my model. It was kind of concerning, but I thought like, well, I guess that's normal. I guess my model sucks. But then after like 2 months, someone just bought my model, and I was like, I was really happy. At that time, I was really happy. Like, honestly, someone just bought my 3D model. How cool is that? Like, it cost literally $10, but I was really happy. I made my first money online. But then I saw a message. So basically the customer wrote to me something, and I was like, well, I guess, I don't know. I just kind of started to sweat a little bit. I was just kind of scared, because what if he didn't like my model? And so when I checked the message, the customer said that, well, your model sucks, basically. He didn't say it this way, but he said that there was no textures on the model, and he just couldn't use that model because there was no textures, basically. It was completely white, right? That's when I really started to sweat, and I was just really anxious about this. Like, somebody just said something to me in English, and what do I do about it? I decided to fix the model. I started to fix the textures and basically send them to the customer. So I basically sent the file with textures to him, and I didn't even say anything in English because I was really scared. That I thought like, well, the guy wouldn't understand what I'm saying, so I don't know. I'm kind of awkward. So I just basically sent the texture to him, and he said, thank you. That's when I realized how pathetic my situation is. I just can't speak English. Like, I can understand English. I can make 3D models in English. I can watch videos about how to make 3D models, but I can't sell them because I have zero communication skills. I started reading books. My first book was Harry Potter, and thing is, I was 15 years old, and it was my first book ever. Like, I never read books in my native language, so I decided to start reading my first book in English. And the thing is, it was not easy at all to read this book. I understood like 50% of the words, half of the words were just blurred to me because I didn't know what they mean. And so I didn't even want to continue reading this book. I read like 10 pages and I just closed the book. Then after a couple of months, well, actually it was like 6 months, I started reading this book again. And that time I actually understood it a little bit better. And so I actually read the book. And when I finished my first book, I just got a ticket to reading books. So I read the second book and the third book, and then started reading even more books. And it was just really awesome because of that. My second book was called The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. So this is a very interesting book, and it basically taught me that I should stop really caring about making mistakes, about pleasing people, about trying to be perfect, because it doesn't really matter. And so when I understood that concept, I just felt more free. And I actually stopped caring so much about my English. I thought like, well, I guess that's okay to make mistakes. I guess that's just normal. And when I overcame my fear, I started selling more 3D models. I basically created a freelance profile and I started speaking with customers. But honestly, making 3D models was just really uninspiring. I spent like 12 hours every single day basically sitting in front of my computer with a shitty posture, trying to make 3D models. And it was just really miserable. I just felt really depressed and I just didn't know what to do with my life because, I didn't make a lot of money from making 3D models and I decided to change my trajectory. So I decided instead of making 3D models, I can create a YouTube channel where I talk about how to make 3D models. And I do that in English. It was really hard for me to record my first video because first it was in English and second, I just really feared making my first video because I thought that people will judge me. I have bad voice. I don't know what to talk about. I don't even have any clue about how to make good videos. And so I had to learn all of this. And it was just really hard for me to make my first video. I spent 3 months procrastinating, learning how to make my first video, trying to make it better, trying to speak on the camera because I just really feared the camera. And eventually I recorded my first video. It was about how to make a 3D model of a car. So, I did sounded like a girl. maybe my voice was normal. I don't know. I was really anxious about my voice, but the video came out pretty good and people actually liked my video. Of course, at first there was like 0 views on this video and nobody even watched my video and I was like, oh, all right. But then people started watching my video and they said that it was actually pretty good. So I overcame my fears of speaking in English and I created my first video. But then I was reading a book called Expert Secrets. And in this book, the author was talking about how to pick the right niche, how to pick the right topic for your videos. And I was like, 3D modeling is actually interesting, but it's kind of for nerds, for geeks, Like, making 3D models is just kind of boring. I have to spend a lot of time on one single video and I have to basically share all the details, show every single button, how to do this, how to do that. And so I thought like, I don't like it. I want to do something else. And so I realized that, I actually spent more time on doing something else. So the author in this book said that to teach others something, you need to talk about what you know the most. And you need to talk about what you love the most. And I thought like, I guess 3D modeling is in the first place. But as it turns out, I spend more time on English. I was reading a lot of books. I was watching videos about how to make 3D models in English. I was doing basically everything in English. And I was like, maybe I should talk about English instead. And so I decided to switch my theme to English. And now I basically talk about English every single day, right? And so that's how I started my YouTube channel, teaching people about English. So if you are learning English right now, remember that it will take you a lot of time actually. So for me, it took like 4 years to get from a complete noob to a confident English speaker. And if you increase the challenge, you will get there. So basically that's what I did. First, I started with just basically watching videos in English. Then I started reading books in English. Then I started writing to people in English. And then I started speaking on the camera. And then I basically started speaking to people, right? So this is really simple and that's what you need to do. You just basically need to do it every single day, do it consistently, and challenge yourself by doing harder action. So just keep practicing and soon you will get there. How awesome is that, right? So subscribe and I see you in the next video. Bye.